All right, we are live for our first show, Explain Yourself of 2022, and we are joined by Brant and Fellhound, Will Allred. I have a present for you. I
Okay.
get to deliver the present. I get to be Santa Claus, but I am not the elf that made it. We have to thank Joey Galvez of the Geek Collective, who just sent me something, and I held it till just now because I forgot to do it on our last show. And here we
Bravo. Bravo.
what?
That was very cool.
That is very cool.
It had nothing to do with it. I got it emailed to me, and I was so excited to show it to you. So once again, we look like professionals that we are not because of
Totally
Joey
not.
Collective. But Brant and Fellhound are here with us on our Kickstarter roundtable, and we want to talk about one extremely cool, extremely successful, but can be more successful anthology, The Color of Always. Brant, you are one of the major editors of this. Who did you work with to create this anthology, and what is it? What is it, and who is it for?
Well, see if I can do the cliff notes for this. Well, I did it in conjunction with my executive co-editor, Michelle Abinader. She couldn't make it tonight because she's traveling, but originally it's my vision and idea, and she kind of helped mold it for me and execute a lot of the operational fundamentals. And part of my executive team is Fellhound, as well as Justin Richards, who is the author of Finger Guns for Vault Comics, and that's kind of the core of our decision making. But The Color of Always is essentially a 140 plus page anthology of love stories through a queer lens. They're LGBTQIA plus focused, and they run the gamut from so stories about maybe perhaps realizing your identity to falling in love, which is in the more classical methodology, or different permutations of love beyond the scope that I think I was even expecting. But I really wanted it to be a call to action, an evocation to something positive through the queer lens. And these are stories adapted to the visual medium of the procedural story. They're the story, either the artist or the writer. It's personal stories. And a majority of the teams, we have a mandate for a majority of the teams to be LGBTQIA identifying. And that's kind of the Cliff Notes version. It's just permutations of love expressed through the visual medium of storytelling.
That's awesome. We have Joey Galvez watching. Joey's the guy who gives us our home and gave us that video. Joey, Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year.
Great video.
So, how did you come get these teams together? Was it an open call? Did you do sort of? Did you pick people to invite? How did your teams come to you?
Well, I developed my core team ahead of time. Phil, did you want to say something really quick operationally about this?
Not much. I mean, I feel like you were going to cover the bases, and I'll just add to it. I'll be the Michelle.
Okay, cool. Okay, I put an open call out on my website. I have a portfolio website called brentfisher.net, and I use that as a vehicle for putting out a Google form. And then I pushed it on Twitter, and I reached out to all of the artists and writers that I've befriended in the few years I've been kind of in this space. I'm still just getting started. In fact, Philhound gave me my start as part of the Project Big Hype anthology that was a year and a half ago. And she saw something in a story that I wrote as part of the Gail Simone comic writing school that she put together on Twitter during the throes of the pandemic.
It was
And
a very good story.
and she said, I'm going to be in this anthology. Can I be your artist? I think you have something, and I want to help polish that. And I kind of took it and I ran with it, and I wanted to, and it'd be like, I know not all of them are ready yet, but 2 or 3 anthologies later, and other projects that I'm doing with independent publishers that I'm trying to get off the ground. I wanted to give back, and what better way to give back than to elevate other voices along my own? And I work in LGBTQ plus advocacy. So I really wanted to do it in this way because I really do feel, and it may sound trite in terms of representation, because I think people try to beat that drum, but in actuality, there still is not sufficient amount of queer stories out there, let alone stories that don't go into tropes or that are buried in subtext. I really wanted these to be, and not all the stories are happy. Love is a double-edged sword, but predominantly I wanted to show the complexity of the human condition and how it permeates into queer spaces. And I wanted to preserve them first and foremost. I want these to be on bookshelves to last the test of time as testimonials that these lives were lived. And moreover, I wanted to give context to those both trying to figure themselves out and to those who are allies and friends and family who want to understand. And what better way to understand where your family and friends are coming from than reading stories of other people like them, and how, to kind of feel the feelings behind what they might be going through.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, first of all, I love you too, Joey. Thanks for watching. But yeah, just adding to what Brent said, I feel like this is a very important anthology, especially for queer folks. Like, I, for one, I'm a sucker for romance, and I always wish there was more romance comics out there, but it seems like it's still very niche. And I think having an anthology like this is something that I'm super excited about, because this is exactly the kind of stuff that I always want more of, and you don't really get all the time.
And it's kind of perfect that Kickstarter or crowdfunding is a place for what a publisher might say is too niche to publish. And you guys have over 550 backers.
We are amazing. 7 backers away from 600.
Yeah, so a publisher might say, this is great, I really want to do this, but a publisher might say, romance, LGBTQ, that's niche, we're not going to put it together. And here you guys are frigging killing it by giving an audience something that they want. And that's perfect.
I don't want to come across as the aggressive seller or toot our own horn too hard, but we're pushing across different boundaries here. We're not just challenging the notion of romance, which is present. We're also challenging the notion that love as a subject matter can be more than simply romance. It's learning to love yourself. It's learning to understand how other people think and feel. And love is simply a vehicle that usually is the most convenient, if at least the most understood way of touching other hearts and minds. And also, it's not just 593 backers. Amongst those backers is Infinity Flux Comics of Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's Outsider Comics in New England. It's so we just signed a comic shop in the Twin Cities. It's Neighborhood Comics in Georgia. It's some on the East Coast, some on the West Coast. Books with Pictures, Pulp 716, Gutter Pop Comics, both in Buffalo, from both ends of the city. We are a testimonial to the fact that it's not just, it's time for another horror anthology. It's time for another romance anthology. Oh, you want to have a queer story? We can make a queer sub-label for this in our public. No, it doesn't need to be subgenre. It needs to be on the shelf, adjacent to everything else, so that people can understand that it's part of everyday life. It's not just some subcategorization of something to fill a niche.
I was reading on Twitter one day, and a librarian who I don't know, I wish I knew her handle to put it. She said that she's a librarian and kind of Will's part of the country, down home south. And she said it was about a 14-year-old girl who came back with I think it was a graphic novel, but it could have been a young adult novel. And she said, the girl said to her, there are gay people in this. And she kind of went, well, this is probably going to go bad. And the girl said, how many more do you have like this? And she went, okay, it's going to go good. And she was able to go pick like 4 more books for the young lady to read, because the young lady saw something that she felt and wanted to live in. And this librarian was able to, maybe I shouldn't give her handle, because maybe we don't need the school in Will's part of the country to know about it. But yeah, giving people who are finding comfort in themselves, something to read where they see themselves. I mean, I think that's fabulous. And I'm a straight white kid. I grew up with Luke Skywalker. I saw myself on screen. I am really happy that there are creators right now who are giving children who don't look at Luke and see themselves their characters to identify with. So I think you're doing an amazing thing with this and with all of your books, to be honest. Because, I mean, Commander Rao is an awesome sci-fi adventure with great action, extraordinary artwork, and a really touching story, which I was not expecting when I read it. So I want to really put out that book, which I think has something to do with this anthology.
Yes. So we had a surprise stretch goal that was announced I think 2 days ago. And if we reach 35K, hey, David, and I believe we're about 3.5K from that stretch goal and 5 days left. But once we get to 35K, every single physical pledge is going to come with a copy of Commander Rao.
That is awesome.
And that's like every physical backer. So it's pretty much you get 2 books for the price of one. And I really hope we make that stretch goal. I think we will. We're going to push it, but it's very exciting.
No, I think that was great. I saw that yesterday. I think I saw it, and I was just like, ooh, because I've already backed. And I'm like, I'll take another copy of Commander.
I like more stuff.
I got the Kickstarter copy. I've got the Scout copy. I'm like, give me more.
We reached out to Scout through Charlie, and we want to say, we got a question for you. And it ended up working out. We actually have 1 or 2 more pokers in the fire. Well, nothing we can say that's concrete yet, but we really want to support as many creators as we can as part of this project. And that might be a good segue into the nature of who we have involved in the project, if you're inclined.
Let's do it. I'm going to pull up the since Charlie's co-publisher, let's show the other co-publisher of Scout, David Byrne. He said they were all about it. So one thing I love about Scout is they're up for an adventure, and they're willing to try new things, do new things, to support their creators and their books. And I didn't know, Fel, if this was going to be the Scout book or your Kickstarter book, but I think it's great that it sounds like it's coming from the Scout archives.
Yes. To be honest, I didn't know either. Brent was already talking to Charlie on one end, and then I think Michelle was talking to me on the other end. Everything was already in motion, and I was just like, oh, this is happening. Yes.
We wanted to surprise you, but we also wanted your permission, so we kind of did it in tandem.
I'm speaking for every creator who has ever existed. If you want to buy 400 copies of my book and give them out to people, the answer is yes.
Yeah, it just felt right. It felt right. And we really want to propagate those kind of stories, and I'm glad David's here to kind of back that up, because we wanted to cross promote this. We name drop Scout every single time we can. This will be a Scout copy. I think we cleared them out. I hope we cleared them out. But it's 500 copies if we hit 35,000.
Yeah, well, I hope you almost cleared them out with this paper shortage that we're all worried about. I'm worried about a second printing, but you know what? That's a good problem to have. So I'm going to go down your page and tell us about the teams you have as I find them.
Well, first and foremost, as you're scrolling past, you just saw the cover. That is done by Elisa Romboli. You might know her from Black Mask's Alice in Leatherland, as well as the current run of A Thing Called Truth for Image Comics.
Which is a fantastic comic.
Yes, please go get it. Please read it. It's tying up its story, I believe, right now, in fact. So keep an eye out for the trade, but I think the last one's coming out soon. We also have Sarah Allen Reed, wonderful artist. She did a jumbo-sized bookmark. I'm going to go with the reward tiers first. Then we have Michi, artist out of New York, who did our journal, which is a gorgeous full cover. It's got the inside cover and the outside cover. We did Denic journals. Every Denic journal they're known for quality, but on top of it, every single Denic journal bought is a donation towards building a school somewhere worldwide.
Oh, very cool.
Brett Schmidt, a hero from, and by the way, Michelle and I both met through the Liana Kangas True Bud community on Discord and beyond. Like, we're both Patreons of Liana. I'm actually Liana's community moderator for Discord, and I'm the producer of the podcast Comics Inebriated that Liana does with Matt Emmons.
Oh, nice.
You might hear me in the intro if you ever play an episode of it. I do that. I'm kind of like you're now listening to Comics Inebriated and that kind of thing. But we all met through there. Michi's from there as well, and Michi did. They're so talented. Did that journal. Brett's from there as well. Did a bunch of foil stickers. One's a pronoun sticker that you can actually use a Sharpie. It's and they're big. They're like coaster sized. There's a moon, I believe. There's like a Comic Pow one with all the colors from the various representative flags of the community. And I believe there's our logo sticker as well. And then Philip Sevi did one of our prints, as well as Skylar Patridge. Fell did a print. And then Val Halverson, the artist from Finger Guns. And a lot of Vault alumni, actually,
Nice.
kind of in our reward sphere, so to speak. It's a set print of 5, and they all did a piece of art. They're 5x7, slightly like 80 to 100 pound paper stock. And then and we added Adam Ferris last second. Adam is what did a print for us as well.
Nice.
Oh, and every physical tier gets a door hanger, if you're wondering what that is.
This
We did it like a Trapper Keeper style. So basically, one side says "Do not disturb making comics," and the other side says "Do not disturb reading comics." And they go with every physical tier will get at least that. And then the next tier up gets those stickers, and there's the prints. Those are work in progress. If you go on our Twitter or get updates on our Kickstarter, you'll see some of the finished ones. But yeah, that's all the print artists right now.
Now, I have a bit of advice for you, Fel. Now, take this or leave this. It's your career. Never, ever show people you can draw horses.
I know. We were like, oh my God, she's flexing. It's a horse. Like, wow.
Things I do for you, Brent. Send this technology.
We wanted to have these, each print represents a different facet of that artist's particular take on how they wanted to contribute to Permutations of Love.
Uh-huh.
I really liked Val's. It's non-binary or trans-mass characters, in the throes of a kiss. And then we have Philip contributed to two characters getting married with a progress flag behind them, and Skylar did something a little bit more sapphic with the flashes of color, and Fel did the pride flag night, and Adam did something I thought was really intriguing, which is somebody escaping out of a robot that has like a permanently assigned gender, and they're breaking out and they're actualizing their true selves. It's really, the final product is on our Twitter, and it's really cool.
Nice.
And I'll get him.
And there's an example. The super extra tier gets a thank you card with Michi's art, but also there's an example of one of 3 6x4 approximate jumbo-sized tarot card bookmarks made by Sarah Allen Reed.
That's gorgeous.
Sarah is amazing. She's super talented.
So we're going to get down to the teams that are part. Are they? Yeah. I know that guy. Oh, all right. When we come back, though, you're going to have to get out of that chair. I want everybody to see the chair you're sitting in when we when we pull out of this, because that is just too crazy.
I am the Carol collector. So
yes, you are. I was like, man, this guy's on brand.
Well, that guy, but
this guy's okay too. This guy's all right.
Eric Plik, yeah, he's all right.
Yeah, he's all right. No Angel Writers, okay. Can
I tell you? Do we have time? I can tell you an Eric Plik thing real quick.
We can be here all night, buddy. You tell us whatever it's fun, whatever's clever, you go for.
Script review. No, this is the story. We're both from the same hometown.
Okay.
Eric and I are from Toledo. We joke about coming from the Rust Belt area of Northern Ohio, and my friend Michelle ran into Eric at New York Comic Con and it's like, yeah, from somewhere in Ohio.
Mhm.
And that's what we called it, the somewhere in Ohio tier. But I talked to my dad came by to visit for Christmas, and I go, Eric, scroll on my Kickstarter. Eric Pilecki, is Jeff Pilecki? I go, yeah, I don't know. And it's like, I think I'm friends with his dad. Is this sister like in Hollywood or something? And I go, yeah. Oh yeah, we go way back. They're reenactment buddies. They did like Civil War reenacting.
Oh, really?
They're like, yeah. So like our dads are old friends, and the fact that we kind of randomly ran into each other in the comic sphere professionally, there's no like before that. We just happened to both be from Toledo, and our dads happened to be friends. We didn't know that. I just thought it was funny.
I think I killed his dad like 20 times.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He killed me like 12, but still.
It was just ridiculous. But Eric was very generous in offering a script review tier as well as a bundled collection of work he's been involved in.
No, I mean Eric's an excellent writer. All of his books are good. So getting the book's free because having him look at your script is worth what that was anyway. But just
sorry to derail, but
no. This is what it's about. We're here to have fun. We're going to talk about the project, but we're here to have a good time and kind of talk about how comics are made, how you meet people, and I mean, like, obviously, you've made a bunch of friends and you've coalesced an army to put this anthology together.
Yeah,
Brent just knows everyone, honestly.
You found me out. You found me out.
Linda Carter to retweet the anthology. I don't know how they did it, but it was like probably one of the top 5 moments of my life.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I got Gail Simone. She's watching us, keeping tabs. And I go, one of your kids is doing a thing. Help! And she's been doing great.
So tell me about the teams behind these short stories. I think I went all that glitters.
Oh no, it's fine. We break them down the stories in a subsection, but long story short, we run the full range of intersectionality from geography to gender, sexuality, everything. We're global, and I really wanted to have as much diversity and representation as I could amongst our ranks, because if I'm going to be elevating voices, I really need to be cognizant of that. Mm-hmm. And we have just some amazing teams. I really don't know how to. I mean, I don't want if you want to go through 20 people, but
let's go through 20 people. Let's give everybody a short shout out instead of picking 3 and doing them in depth. Let's get everybody's name out and kind of who they are and the theme of their story, or without giving any spoilers.
Okay. How do I? Well, I'll start with Tilly and Susan Bridges. You might know them from some Action Lab stuff they did recently. They also are, I think, writers for the recent Hugo Awards, and they're big in Star Trek. I think they work for Star Trek. They do some side work for Star Trek Adventures, and they're doing a story together with regarding I think it was called Long Away, and it's about a trans woman going back to reconnect with a father that passed before they transitioned.
Oh wow!
And it's a very heartfelt, very honest, amazing story. And they're a married trans woman, cis woman team, and I believe they have some other assets they brought on board, but they're the core team for that story, and it's really just phenomenal. And I think. I guess I'll just do me next. I'm doing a story with Rachel Disler called Extra Pages, and it's actually based on one of the provisions I put in there was it could be your story or it could be somebody that you're related to or somebody that you know, and you're just either preserving and honoring that extension of yourself. And it's my father's story actually of how he met one of his best friends in Holland in the early 70s. And it starts with a little bit of a misunderstanding, and then it just sort of blossoms into a very rich friendship that crosses generations and decades. where where both families got to kind of become bigger than they were because of a chance meeting, I guess 50 years ago now.
Wow.
I won't spoil it though, but that's a good summation. Michelle, my cohort, my right arm, did a story with an artist named Tench, Alexandra Orakova, I believe is her name, and she is from Russia, and a staggering talent that deserves to be in comics right now. I think the story is called All That Glitters, and all these stories are going to be deeply personal. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this one is about pushing back against expectations of who you are and who you should be, and it's beyond the familial. It's actually the expectations thrust upon Michelle's identity, I believe, as an individual, even within what was construed to be at the time safer spaces, queer spaces, where you're supposed to be one thing or supposed to be another thing, you're supposed to appear as one thing or not, and wanting to kind of be beyond that and transcend that and be her own person. And it's a really good story, and I think Tench does a really good job capturing what is a lot of intimate shots with minimal dialogue in confined spaces to kind of give the idea of introspection throughout the entire course of the narrative. The next one is called Sea Change. That's by Lillian Hockwender and Gabe Martini. Lillian wrote this is the one story that we wanted to do adaptations. One of my mandates was it's either going to be a complete adaptation of an event that happened, the paraphrasing of an event, or allegorical. And Lillian's one of the few that went full allegorical, in my opinion, but relative to a very personal journey of identity that is that's gender fluid, and I won't spoil it, but let's just say that the idea of a passage across dangerous waters and the unknown, and the fear of the unknown, and learning to embrace the unknown, and making it part of who you are as a necessary process. It can be wonderful.
Did she bring Gabe on, or did you put them together? Because that artwork is gorgeous, and it feels to me like it's perfectly suited to what you're talking about the story is.
Yeah, Lillian's pronouns are they them. But just to keep on. I'll try to stay on top of this because there is a preferred pronoun list for everybody that we tried to maintain throughout the process. Okay. That's but and then Gabe is he him.
I'll try to pay more attention to that. I apologize.
Oh, don't worry. We're going to get to this together. It's very important, but I want to make sure that everyone's comfortable because it's part of the learning process. There's no need for a regret just going forward. That's why this book is so great. It's a teaching tool as well as an entertainment tool. But Gabe is from England. So he's from South America, but he's currently residing in England, I believe. And Gabe was somebody that we met. One of the very rare occasions where we didn't have a writer artist. We were able to match Gabe with Lillian, and we thought that was a really good fit. And we think we killed it, to be perfectly honest.
From what I'm saying, I think you did.
That's just a quick question for you, Brent. Yeah, I know we're going through a lot of the stories here. Did you have a set page count, or was that flexible for the teams, or how did that work?
I had a page range. I actually don't remember what it is off the cuff any longer. It feels like a million years ago. Do you remember, Phil?
I think we didn't you say 110, 120? I don't know. Like for total, and then maybe
no. For independent stories, like if I was
okay. Wasn't it 10 to 12 pages, maybe?
I think around there, but I made exceptions on one or two occasions. There's actually one story in particular I'll get to where I was like, no, you're adding a page. and I don't think anyone will ever say no to that, but no. But yeah, they did a great job. Leaves is by Krista. I'm going to butcher Krista's last name. Herrera. And fell on cabbage. It's cabbage. It's cabbage, everybody.
Okay. All right. So we've got to give her extraordinarily strong positive affirmation because they give them extraordinarily strong positive affirmation because they do it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so happy when Cabbage pitched, and it was like yes, and we actually matched Cabbage with Katie, and and God, are we so blessed to have Katie Hicks on the team too, because Katie's a dynamo. I mean, every single time we showed the pages for this, people just popped off, and with good reason.
Yeah, they're really cute there.
It's a personal journey story about the evolution of self over time.
Okay.
And learning to accept that. Oh yeah. Okay. So Mario, the quintessential, self-appointed king of anthologies, in my opinion. From what I've seen from the Twitter bio.
Let's just put it this way: he was on our last show or our second to last show with an anthology. So I agree. Yeah. Great dude.
Laura is a friend who Mario's trying to kind of elevate, and with good reason. Laura has a very, I don't know, Fel, would you agree? Like a very unique aesthetic voice compared to what I think I've seen in the range of submissions we got. And they brought on their own colorist and their own letterer, who are also part. That's one of the rare occasions where I believe we got them in time to include them, because they moved fast on this story as part of the battery of creators. I do not want to butcher the name pronunciation, but Mr. Canola is the colorist, and then Scott is the letterer. And I just got done looking at the lettered versions from Scott, and I mean, you can actually see a little bit of an idea of what they're doing. They're actually using the entire story is based around kind of an exchange over instant messenger, and they're using instant messenger bubbles for the dialogue, and it works throughout the entire tale. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need to take a minute though and explain that Nathan came out of nowhere. Artist writer combo, the boy and the hollow wolf. Nathan asked us, "Do you mind if I do something a little asymmetrical? Do you mind if I do something a little whimsical? And it's going to have like an element of fantasy to it, or some kind of surrealism?" And I go, "We're thinking, knights and castles or whatever." And sure, go to town. We as long as it's allegorical to something that actually transpired within your frame of scope or experience, go for it. It's stunning. I was literally bowled over by it, and I was actually ashamed of myself for not contemplating this as a necessary part of a storytelling collection relating to love, because it's the damaging aspects of it, in a sense, the idea of romantic love and sexuality, as well as loving yourself. Because there's stories of love where you are the culprit and you cause the harm, or you cause the good, or you cause the bad, and then there's stories where the bad is done to you, and reconciling that in your head and learning to love yourself again is really an important part of the process of healing. And I really think that story stands out, and it's wonderful. So I can't recommend it more. Sorry, I'm rambling, but I really like that story. Letting It Fall, Priya and Jenny, I think they were a set, if I'm not mistaken, and Letting It Fall slides into what I thought I was going to get a lot more of, which is sort of these romantic, I found somebody, I'm questioning things, I want to learn more about who I am as a person, and it is that, and it's done in such a profoundly bold way that it stood out, and it was one of the earlier ones we admitted into the process.
Oh, cool.
And the color is just Jenny is an amazing, she's doing her own coloring, she's doing her own line work, and she is an employee of a comic shop, and they're going to do a signing for her.
Oh, neat.
Nice. Yeah. Shout out to, again, Infinity Flux down in Chattanooga. That's her shop.
This looks like it would fit in great with your 80s Avengers comics on the old newsprint.
That's 100% the vibe. Yeah, 100% the vibe. If you notice the colors in general, for the ones that have finished, I think like 99% of them have finished, or at least in process coloring already for the samples, which is what I wanted to do. There was no brand standard for this. I just wanted everyone to be themselves. And this mandate within even the name Color of Always, I think there was some kind of subconscious connection between everybody and the work. The colors on every single story, even if they're divergent from one another, are vibrant and strong and just amazing. There's like a beauty in the cacophony of it, and it's just great. And Kaj is an excellent example of a creator for all seasons. They are a powerhouse. They pushed back on us on like, what did you want to do for this? What did you know? Are we clear on this part? And they made us think about the nature of the structure of layout and design and storytelling in such a way that I think we have a better book because we listened.
No,
And
nice.
this is a really great, very personal, could not be better matched to the mission of this project story about learning to love someone by fundamentally meeting them where they are and accepting them for the just the nuances of their character.
Interesting. All right.
And there's Long Away by Tilly and Susan. I was crying at the end of it. I think if anyone's ever done anything in their life, and it doesn't necessarily need to be something that's intrinsically tied to any one thing, but if you did something that you're proud of, or that you did something that fundamentally is an elemental part of who you are, and somebody that you cared about missed it, you're at the other end of that equation. There's a dividing line in your life between something, them being able to bear witness to what you've done and when they haven't. I think you'll connect to this story.
That's exciting. All right.
Both sides. This is one that kind of took me by surprise. I was expecting one thing and I got another, but I still loved it. And it's frankly a shot across the bow, in my opinion, in a good one too, at the notion of making a story about love and not readily addressing the hurt it can do. And it's different than Nathan's story. It's a completely different direction, but it's this the power of love when, when it's unchecked and can be hurtful and spiteful, and also it makes you think about whether or not what you'll be like when you come out of something else at the end of it. You're not the same person. And Drawing Lines, Posting Signs by Christy Porter, very talented author out of Utah. And I have the pleasure of knowing that one of the first retail partners we have was a new store called Under the Umbrella in Salt Lake, which is literally just I think their self moniker is a queer little bookstore. And
that's clever.
and Christy is rightly so popping off about the fact that she's going to be able to go into a bookstore and see her book on a shelf.
Yeah.
And to be able to deliver that to her is it means a lot to me. And Alina is from, I believe, India, and they brought color in a certain vibrancy, and their panel work in terms of the storytelling showed a wisdom that belayed what I thought was possible with the script. I thought the script was going to flow a certain way, and it plays with time in such a way that is just, it's sublime. And it's a story about basically coming to grips with mistakes made, or not mistakes, regrets, and love born of hindsight, bittersweet, but all the more precious. Claudia is, I think I wrote something about this, but I think the real takeaway is it's a story about falling in love and leaning into lore and history and family and tradition, and that tradition doesn't need to be the enemy of change. If anything, tradition can, if used rightly and respectfully, and it can be a bridge between generations and the preservation of one thing, not at the expense of something else. The emboldening of something else.
Looking at this page, it's not colored yet. Will this be black and white in the book, or will this be colored?
At the time, it was undecided. I left them full creative discretion to do what they like, and I don't have a firm answer on that yet. But I'm happy either way.
It definitely looks like it could live black and white perfectly fine. From my eyes, that type of art style living black and white would be. I'm not going to say better than colored, but
yeah,
I think it could live very comfortably in that way.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't too animated one way or the other on making them do it. I said, well, I told every single artist has been given minimal direction, to be perfectly blunt. This is the
That's what you
creation
say.
of
Fellhound has been just cracking whips
Oh, yeah.
behind the scenes.
yeah. Falcon back
We
there.
don't say that out loud.
Oh, okay.
And an open love letter is it's because that's secured spot. I actually kept that spot because in addition to Fellhound basically giving me my start, I know a lot of people and I got my real idea of what it's like to be I think there's a certain kind of decorum and behavior you need to have to really be taken credibly in this space. And
What
Liana,
is it? What is it?
kindness.
I'm sorry.
I think it's kindness, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, fuck that. That's too hard. I'll never make it. I can't be kind.
Kindness, goodness, earnestness, openness, vulnerability,
Empathy.
including people, just in general, in everything you do, as long as we're all on the same page of just respect. And Liana taught me that. I mean, I like to think I'm a nice person generally, but I went to C2E2 and they took me around and said, "Oh, this is Gavin Smith. Oh, that's Sue Lee. This is my buddy Joe. This is my friend. Friend so and so. And oh, this is Vita, by the way. And that kind of a thing. And I just took it all in, and I just realized that there's this sort of like familial structure to comic creators. And I found my family through this, and I wanted Liana to be a part of it, so I secured a spot for Liana. And so Liana's gonna have a story with Jaslyn Stone from Mad Cave, and God knows how many other endeavors Jaslyn's been a part of now. And they're gonna have a small thank you, I guess, to the community from their own side of things and how their own perspective.
So I think what you said is really cool, and I'm going to pull off of the project for 1 second. And this is sort of tooting all of our horns, but the indie comic community is like 50% the greatest people you've ever met. 40% shy people who, once you get to know them, are the greater than the loudmouths who are great. And, you kind of learn who that other 10% are and you give them their own space. But I really do enjoy meeting, talking, retweeting the indie comic community, because there's just a bunch of nice, funny as hell, extraordinarily talented people coming in right now. And Kickstarter is giving people the chance to bring their work to the world in a way that 15 years ago, I know I would not have a career in comics without crowdfunding. I can't say that for anybody else here, but I can say point blank, Tart would be 3 issues, 4 issues. I would have run out of money and I'd be done without crowdfunding. And it's allowed me to meet you guys. It's allowed me to stay up on Friday nights with Will and talk comics with cool people about their cool projects. And it's just a great community, and it's been great. I've met you two in the last maybe 6 months. We've kind of met each other, and little by little, I'm like, these people are friggin' cool. All right, this is all right. This is a good place. So I'm glad you said that about the community, because I can say this honestly, the people that make comics, our peers, are awesome people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm a shithead, but the people around me are great.
I had a past life as but before I started really getting back into comics, I lost myself for a long time. Both in terms, I think my coming back to comics actually coincides with me coming out in terms of understanding my gender identity too. They're hand in parcel. I came out on Twitter to the comics community before I came out to people I knew. I came out as non-binary in a letter column of Captain Marvel, I think 23. To be perfectly honest, I wrote it and they published it. And so shout out to Sarah Brumstead for doing that, because it was huge. I mean, half my shelf behind my head, you see, that's all Liana Kangas.
Okay. So behind you, as
Yeah.
Carol Collector, and that column, so we don't forget, you got to show
Yes,
people that chair.
Okay, here's the chair. I'll show you something else after we're doing the chair. Hold on. But
the chair is awesome.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's some high quality H2O right there, Brian.
Well, that's also part how I got my foot in the door. What happened is I was like, oh wait, Brent can write. This crazy person that keeps commissioning Captain Marvel portraits can actually do something too. Let's throw him a bone, and so yeah, so that's where it came from, and a little bit too. But like there's Drew Moss and Joshua Hickson is up here too, and this Luciana Vecchio and Marcia Takara and Tom Rainey, but really it's that is more. Jeez. That's every key issue in Carol's life, and then I have like a wall of just all the commissions I have from friends like Brian Level and Sweeney Boo and Veronica Fish and her husband and this all kinds of I just really believe in. We're all in this together, right? And I had to learn somehow. And the best way to learn is to compensate people for their work, see how everything kind of comes together with pencils and ink and digital, and then start asking questions. And I wouldn't be here without, picking people's brains and befriending them on an honest level. And it's just been great. I've gotten advice from, like Adam Gorham, and I've gotten advice from Eric Palicki, like we talked about and stuff. And yeah, I concur entirely. And it's all based around human dignity and human respect. And in fact, I know I'm really happy that we're starting to, like that ImageWorks union thing, the image employees, it's great. I hope we get more codification of that kind of thing, because we need better working conditions for comic workers. But it's the bohemian nature of it that still permeates, while problematic, that I think allows us to connect on a level that you do not see in other venues of creative endeavors. You don't see artists banding together like we do. You don't see Heroes Initiative in other parts of artists. And there's a little bit, but you don't see people like going out of their way. You don't see Jimmy Palmiotti like putting a shout out because someone's house burnt down, or you don't see Liana doing a commission because someone's cat got sick. It's us. It's human beings loving each other, and that, how could I not give back by doing an anthology about love? For my first act of trying to elevate other people's voices.
So speaking of love. Possibly the most beloved figure in comics on Twitter is Fellhound.
Yes,
I would agree with that.
Yes, 100%.
I don't know for that. I think you guys are all in the running.
I am extraordinarily happy whenever I see anybody retweet your stuff. I think you're great. I think you're extraordinarily talented. Was comics always your goal, or what art form did you? High school Fellhound. What did high school Fellhound want to do with their art?
So you would never believe it, but in high school, I was a theater kid. I did drama, I did plays, I was on stage, like not like this hermit now. But yeah, I didn't draw that much in high school. I wrote a lot, and I've always wanted to get into writing. But I never really got into comics until college, probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then in college, going back to that story about the librarian and the girl, I actually picked up a copy of Batwoman Elegy, and I was like, oh my God, there's a gay superhero. And that kind of started my journey, and I started reading more Batwoman, and then from Batwoman, I started reading more DC, and then more Marvel, and then it just kind of spiraled and went from there. So that's how I really got into comics. And then I was like, Batwoman's really cool. J.H. Williams' art is very cool, as you can see on my wall. So I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then I just started drawing.
Really? Oh, wow. So that kind of makes sense, because you're actually a very good writer. There's very few people who can do both at the level that you do both. So it makes sense that you came from one, but I don't know how you can do both. That's magic and dark magic, evil magic. But
so.
God bless you for doing it.
We have to call that dark magic.
was dark magic, and the fact that like you've put out like a dozen issues of Tart, and I've made like one comic.
Yeah, but we started in I think 2014, so don't don't put us up there for a bastion of speed. And quality is all on Ludo's shoulders. I'm just like, draw a demon, and then I get this amazing spider creature. I'm like, yeah, I'm a genius. I told him to draw a demon.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard I'm not an artist, but I was raised by one. So I have a lot of respect for artists, and I think that helps a lot, to be honest. And I also have an idea of how much work goes into it. And I also like to think I have an eye for art that I think resonates with me creatively. But it takes a lot. I'm always constantly impressed by what Fel does. And when Fel decides to exercise the writing side, which she lambasts herself about doing it not often enough. But when you do, there's an eloquence to your flow and to your terminology. And I say that I mean, did you ever actually read? I mean, read the description for Commander Rao on Scout's page. I mean, that's a really good pitch submission, in terms of the story.
Well, but there's something that she's done even better recently, and I think that's the is it Pasta Night with Commander Rao?
Oh, the cooking with.
The cooking with.
Yeah. all it needs is a little bit of pain, right?
Oh my gosh! So those are actually co-written with my girlfriend. So I have to give her co-writing credit for those because I'm not that funny on my own.
Those are very funny, and
you really two are a funny team.
I think we have a backup career in stand-up if like paying jobs stop paying us.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to find Commander Rao to get it on the Scout page. There we are. Let's see here. Let me share that baby.
There's an exclusive. I think this is the Scout web cover?
Yes, that's the web cover by Jem Eros.
Yeah, and I've got the other one around here somewhere, but I've not had a lot of luck locating stuff tonight. So.
All right, Brant, you want to read it in your introducing Leanna Kingus podcast voice?
Absolutely. Set in a sci-fi future after a decade of warfare against the despot Baron Klaus, a rogue embittered soldier decides to storm the Baron's manor and kill him herself. A year later, stories are sung of her heroism, but the mystery of her motives remains. Thus begins the tale of Commander Rao, a thrilling, fast-paced comic adventure of how violence begets violence and how the heroics of warfare are meaningless in the light of what has been lost.
Nice.
Brent, can you just like narrate all my comics from now on?
No, but actually writing copy is extraordinarily difficult because we spend all of our life trying to learn how to write a story, and then you have to go to this other muscle to get people excited about the story without any of the spoilers, and it feels weird. Like I had to write stuff for previews just the other day. Now, thankfully, I have a friend who's done advertisement, so I just texted him today, like, "Hey, can I send you all my crap?" And he's gonna fix it for previews. But I'm just like, God, what is this? I wrote this book and I don't know what it's about. I don't know how to sell it. Like if I'm at a con, I can talk to you about it. But writing advertising copy just feels weird to me. I don't know. I don't like it. So maybe Fel, do you want to write my previews? I'll send you PDF of all 5 issues.
Video. We'll make some tarts. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I mean it's fun to do this, and you have to spread your wings and do multiple things. So this kind of brings me back to a question I thought for Brant earlier. So whenever we have people with anthologies, I want to ask like an album, songs are in a specific order for a specific reason. How do you take your 20 stories and decide first, second, third, fourth? What is the math involved or the magic involved in the order of the stories once they're already chosen?
I think Michelle and I are going to sit down and probably have a very long meeting about order. I kind of go from my gut. I just go with what feels right. And the reason I can kind of say that so flippantly, and I don't necessarily that's the case. You mentioned like advertising. The reason I'm an AVP of marketing for banking, and I've been in marketing for like 16 years now. So like being able to make like the hard call, even if it's not good, is something that I kind of train my brain to do, especially in terms of project management. And if you and I'm the nice one, that's self-appointed, by the way. Like Michelle likes to say that she's mean mommy and I'm nice mommy. But she keeps me level in terms of ideation and budget and whatnot. And I'm sure between the two of us, we're going to have a little bit of a tussle. But if I was going to get something a bit more substantive than just a gut feeling, I probably would like to contextualize it based on differences between internal and external. I think I will start with external stories, ones that I think would maybe bring the reader into that are a bit more familiar, perhaps the trials, crucibles that have an allegory in their own lives, and then I'll start using that as a vehicle to get into more introspective stories that might challenge readers that are not as used to gender fluidity and sexuality orientation to kind of be able to say, "Oh, I never thought of things that way," and then while I already have their attention, that's when I'll hit them with those kind of tales.
I feel like Kevin's right. That order is going to be very specific to what you're after. Using that external, internal, but I feel like there's probably a little more onus on the first story.
Absolutely.
And on the last story, because what do you want to leave your audience with, and I'm just wondering how you're going to balance that, because hey, you got a hard problem. Good luck.
Well, I cheated a little bit. The first story, in the context of your question, I had a vision for how I wanted this book to be done, and I actually didn't just pay Elisa Romboli for the cover. I wrote a 2-page introductory mission statement story that's based upon a poem I wrote called "The Color of Always," and I broke the poem into fragments across 2 pages, and I had her illustrate a story that I wrote based on the narration. And that story is my mission statement introduction to the book, which sets the mood. And then I'll have a little letter from myself explaining the nature of the book, along with the title card, table of contents, and then we go into the first story.
I don't want to be too pushy, but I think The Color of Always is a really good title. You should name the whole anthology that.
Yeah. yeah. That's right. Yeah, it's a good idea. I like
Thank
that.
You. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll let Michelle know.
You don't even have to credit me on that. That one's free.
For free. Oh man, you're so generous.
There's also a what do we call it, Kevin? The explain yourself bump. So any backers you get after this airs, that's totally due to this show. Just totally.
I'm gonna have a forward. I'll just say for KJ, and why.
Yeah.
594 and up is all Will and Kevin.
That's right.
Oh wow. But yeah, I was a poet. I'm a poet too, or at least I claim to be. And I wrote a lot of poems in my day, and I wanted to use a few of them. And I realized that I never thought I would turn something that I wrote on Tumblr 10 years ago into something like this. But to be able to actually turn it into this is amazing. I got a message on Kickstarter. I tend to personally thank all of the pledges as they come in. And somebody replied back saying, "Thanks, I'm going to give this to my 16-year-old."
Oh, wow.
And awesome. yeah. I sent them to Michelle, and I think we had a moment. But to be able to see that translated is great.
Yeah, I think I'm learning more from my daughter's 13. I'm learning more from her age of kids and the 20 and 30-year-olds than I'm learning from anybody my own age or above. And it's really nice to see the level of acceptance of the kids in middle school right now compared to the world that I went to middle school in is completely different and so much better. But it's still scary to me because I can't take out what I saw, experienced, and as a young, uneducated, ignorant kid, didn't know any better not to be part of. And it's embarrassing to admit that, like
You got to get past
a
it.
boy looked at me in middle school, I would have freaked out. And by high school, it didn't bother me. And then college, it was like, oh, that's not a big deal. And then I moved to New York City. Once I moved to New York City, I was like, oh, wait, this is fucking nothing. What has my life been the first 23 years of my life? But I'm seeing these 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds who it couldn't bother them less if a boy is more feminine, if a girl is more masculine. One of my daughter's friends in middle school asked her what boy she had a crush on, and then stopped and said, or girl, and like literally gave my daughter like the opening and the acceptance before she'd even answered. And so like that guy is going to give a book to a 16-year-old because he learned from his 16-year-old.
I don't want to get too heavy with this, but I want to take that for an example. The reason is you're absolutely right, and it needs to be protected. There's an element of genie in the bottle going on, where the ensuing generations will have more at their disposal to know and say these things. And the thing we're going to do now is the price of this is eternal vigilance, and we need to protect these resources. We need to protect these kids. So they're because they're not asking for permission. Generation Z and all the younger ones, they're not asking for permission. But the problem with that is there's still enough of the older generations here that's where those 8 or 9 bills and state houses are coming from. They are a convenient othering to rally against. There's something that is being construed to be different and aberrant, and they're putting it up on the wall. You could substitute trade unionists for transgender right now, and the sentimentality of that speech about fascism would be just as relevant. And we need to protect and be vigilant and keep fighting. So we need more books like this. Before they start burning them, we need more books like this on the shelf. We need more stories like this until they can't deny it anymore. Until these kids can keep pushing back, and there isn't some law passed by some asshole who's like in his 80s just because it's convenient. It get some votes because people are scared because they don't know any better, or they do even worse. So that's why we need to keep that level of vigilance, because those ensuing generations are here. And the one thing that we can do, if we do anything at all, is just help pave the way and get out of the way. And that's another main reason why I want to do this and why I want to keep doing this going forward.
Yeah, and I know that Kat and Phil launched the By Visibility anthology last year, and they're actually taking, I think they're still running submissions for it right now.
They are.
So there's going to be a second volume of that. Mm-hmm.
And there was the Love is Love anthology in the past 3 years.
But perfect example, by the way. And by the way, everybody, those submissions are open for the By Anthology Volume 2. So please, if you're interested, go. But I want to mention though, intentionally, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is a perfect example. I got interviewed early on in the process for this Kickstarter by 2 or 3 different places, and in the preliminary interviews, not live, but in the preliminary questions, when I was reaching out or they were reaching out to me, I got confused for the bisexuality anthology. There shouldn't be so few of us that one could be misconstrued for the other. And that's just my one statement on that. Oh, and by the way, I know you're running that logo down, the URL down there. In case anybody needs a convenient, it is colorofalways.com does work as well.
All right. Beautiful. Awesome. I've got another banner that's really important. Can we see Hansel?
Yeah, actually are. Let me grab him real quick. Buddy, where are you, bud? Mr. Hansel.
he napping?
Yeah, I had to go take care of Otis
Oh,
because
no,
he
I
was
woke him
like,
up. I'm
I
so
got to go
sorry.
outside
He's old
now.
as
And I'm like,
He is
Oh,
old as
come on, man.
Methuselah, so I woke him out of a nap, but that's okay. He's handsome.
Aw, baby. 15-year-old
oh, what a good buddy.
He is he's like 90% dachshund, about 10% miniature pincher with a smash of rat terrier.
Oh, okay. Oh, he gave it to Tongue. Yeah, I'm going to blow you a kiss too.
He's the bestest of boys, and I love
Good
him.
boy.
So cute.
My dog goes to sleep when I do this. Every once in a while, he's on the couch next to me, but he's usually just in bed like, yeah, I'm going to bed, man.
He's a good friend.
All right. Well, I really want to I appreciate you guys coming on. I think it's a great book that I'm excited to get in my hands. I should say it's 2 books I'm excited to get in my hands. I will make sure that the extra copy of Commander Rao goes to somebody. I mean, I've already got a copy for my daughter, but I'll find somebody else to give the extra copy to. Thank you guys so much. And we are going to bring up the one book that is still on Kickstarter from before Christmas, and that is actually another LGBTQ story, Unburned, a Rebuild the Sky prequel. Vera and B were on with us before Christmas. They're 2 friends of mine from about 45 minutes north of me, and they're just great people, great writers. They have an awesome artist, and I think all of the Rebuild the Sky books are worth checking out for the story alone, for the art alone, and when you put it together, it's just a fabulous book and worth checking out.
And I think they have 4 days left before that campaign ends. They're fully funded, I believe, aren't they?
I think they're doing great. I think
they're killing it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and rightfully so. That the art on it is great. We do want to mention Mayfield 8 Let's Party by Tim Larson. He was going to try to join us tonight. Sometimes when you do a show this late, it doesn't work for everybody. That is motorcycles, violence, gore, and
From
just
the 70s.
70s gonzo fun. So he's only got 2 days to go. So I want to give Tim that. So it's Mayfield 8. You spell out the number 8. And one other thing, Brian Hawkins just launched The Lunatic, the Lover, and the Poet.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to be on with us next week, we hope, to talk about that. We talked about the first issue when it came out, and we'll talk about the second. But before we go, I am going to brag that I happen to have been honored by a Fellhound cover for Tart, and could not have come out any nicer, better. Ludo was blown away by it, and we're honored to have your artwork with our character. So thank you so much for
I'm honored to
doing that.
draw the cover. I was so stoked. I was like, I mean, obviously, I'd never say no to a chance to draw some very pretty ladies. So thank you for having me on the cover.
Hey, you know what? If I had known your proficiency with abs, I might have picked a different issue to ask you for. It didn't really work for 1936 Berlin. It felt off to have belly shirts, but
I mean, there's future issues.
Yeah.
There
we go. Yeah.
Whenever it works out, you always have an open invitation. Whenever you have a day, a week, 2 weeks, you let me know, and I'll let you draw as much of any toxic you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Guys, thank you so much, and we appreciate it. Thank you, everybody that popped in and commented. David Byrne, Joey Galvez, and Facebook user, which could have been Charlie Stickney. Sometimes he comes in as Facebook user, and we don't know why. So has John Westfield came in as Facebook user, and I think Destiny New York.
Pat Shand.
Pat Shand is coming as Facebook user.
Really?
So it could have
Oh.
been any of those four. Pick your poison, whoever you want it to be.
Well,
can
Fel
be-
and I are fans of Destiny New York. So
It's a great book. I mean,
And Elisa, who drew our cover, drew the first few issues of Destiny NY, so that was great.
oh, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Very
So
nice.
yeah, we've got you know what, an awesome group of indie creators, and it's nice to shout out their names. So Facebook user, you are everyone we like.
That's right.
Good night, everybody.
Right.